This is Join Us in France, episode 586. 586. Bonjour, I'm Annie Sargent, and Join Us in France is the podcast where we take a conversational journey through the beauty, culture, and flavors of France. Today, I bring you a conversation with Marie Tartar, who shares her first-hand experience with fractional ownership in Paris. Ever dreamed of owning a piece of the City of Light without the full-time commitment or the price tag? Marie explains how fractional apartments work, why they're different from timeshares, and how you can enjoy Paris like a local, whether for a couple of weeks at a time or a month at a time. We'll dive into the practicalities, the perks, and even some hidden gems that she loves in the Marais. If you've ever wondered how to make Paris a second home, this episode is for you. And FYI, Marie does not sell fractionals. She's a fan, but she has no financial incentive in talking about this, and neither do I. This podcast runs on chocolatine, coffee, and the generosity of listeners like you. Whether you book an itinerary consult, take some of my voice map tours of Paris, join me for a day trip in my electric car around the southwest of France, or support the show on Patreon, you keep this whole adventure going, and I'm deeply grateful. If you'd like to support the podcast and skip the ads this year, you'll find the link in the show notes, and all my tours and services are at joinusinfrance.com/boutique. For the magazine part of the podcast, after my chat with Marie today, I'll discuss Charles de Gaulle to Paris airport transfers, what changes in March 2026, and also some news about the Eiffel Tower. If you want to explore more of France with Join Us in France, browse all our episodes at joinusinfrance.com/episodes. And don't forget to grab your free weekly recap of the best stories, tips, and hidden gems. Just sign up at joinusinfrance.com/newsletter. It's like a little postcards from France delivered straight to your inbox. Bonjour, Marie Tartar, and welcome to Join Us in France.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful to talk to you today about fractionals in Paris. This is not something we've talked about a lot on the podcast, but I think it's important to bring it up because more and more people are doing this, and it seems like a great way to spend time in France, having some sort of, assurance that you will have a piece of Paris of your own, I guess, is how we could put it.
Yeah, I actually like that title you proposed, A Slice of Paris.
Yes.
The idea of a fractional is something that does require a little explanation. The first analogy that people jump to is it a timeshare? Which it is not. A timeshare is basically you're buying time in a location, but it doesn't say a particular apartment. It usually would specify, okay, you get 1 week of a one bedroom in X location. A fractional has some similarities, but it is different in that you are a deeded owner of a group of owners of a particular apartment. So in our case, and in many of the others I've encountered, a company, depending on the developer, that company often is based in the US. And in fact, effectively what we did was we are one of 13 owners who own shares in a California-based company who own a particular apartment in the Marais.
Right. And so do you have assurances of what time frame you can visit? Or is that something that rotates? Or how does that work?
It depends on the particular developer and what they have set up, but I've encountered a lot of different variations. I can describe for you what ours consists of and then what some of the other possibilities are. For example, ours is there are 13 owners, everyone gets 4 weeks a year. 2 of those weeks are fixed, and in depending on what order you signed up, you got your choice of 2 fixed weeks. Obviously, the most popular months in Paris are in spring and fall, and so those are the first weeks that were spoken for fixed weeks. The less popular weeks, which generally would be summer and winter, those then float. So they rotate. The schedule is set out for 10 years. So you can easily see what dates your future stays will be, as well as you can see who else has the other weeks and potentially negotiate with them to trade. So in our case, we chose 2 weeks in October and our first day was a year ago. Our first floating weeks were this last July. So we're here in July and now we're back again for our 2 fixed weeks in October. So this will be our 3rd stay in our apartment. But the first time I encountered a fractional was back in around 2009 when a friend of mine bought a share in a fractional only about a block away from this location in the Marais, but that one was organized differently. It had 12 owners, and everyone got a month at a time. So in her case, her first month was December. And in that particular arrangement, after your first go round, your next month moved forward a season. So in her case, her first month was December, and her very next stay was March. But then it rotated forward another season. And so then there was actually a 15-month gap to June. And that's actually how I came to stay the first time in her apartment because that particular friend was at that time in her 50s, still working. And taking a month at a time was, I think the first time around was doable, but to take another month, only 3 months later, I think they ended up taking 2 weeks and she offered me 2 weeks. And it happened to coincide with my birthday. So, it was like the stars aligned.
Bonus.
Exactly. Exactly. The funny thing is that at the time, I was 49, and I had previously decided that what I wanted to do for my 50th birthday was to spend 2 weeks in Paris in an apartment. So when this came around, I was like, "Okay, well, close enough." Because all of my stays in Paris up to that time had been 3 days en route to some other place in Europe. I had enough to get a taste, but never a satisfyingly long stay.
Right. There are advantages to both, but doing it 2 weeks at a time, especially for people who are still working, it seems unlikely that if you're still working, even if you're still working part time, that you can take a whole month, especially like if your whole month comes up again in 3 months.
Yes, exactly. That's actually one of the reasons why we never purchased a fractional until last year because we were still working, not quite full time, but enough with other travel that it was too big of a time commitment, frankly. So that's one of the things that someone would have to carefully consider is, does it make sense for their life? Can they take a month off at a time? When we were working more, because we're semi-retired now, we still work occasionally, but it's more elective in terms of the amount of time. To take 3 weeks off was pretty doable, but there was a big increase in difficulty of arrangement between 3 and 4 weeks.
Right, right. And so a few questions come to mind. Lots of questions, as a matter of fact. If you can't go, can you then gift your time to someone else? And are there limitations? Does it have to be a close relative or a close friend, or can you just put it out
That's a great question.
Facebook, whatever, to, oh, I'm renting this for this period of time?
So, yes, you can loan it out, but generally, it seems like in most arrangements, the preferred people to lend it out to would be friends and family. And that's certainly allowed in our situation. The option is available in our group to put your unused time on what's called Third Home, which is kind of like a home exchange site. However, it's only been a year since ours was first occupied. And the chatter, the talk among the owners is that there's definitely a preference among the owners that owners not do that. In other words, they definitely prefer to keep it more to known occupiers, let's just say.
Right, right.
However, in my case, I definitely benefited from that friend who actually bought first one 2-bedroom fractional and then within a few years from the same developer decided to sell that one, but before selling it, bought a 1-bedroom from the same developer. And so for several years had 2 apartments, which for the excess time, I was sort of a frequent beneficiary of.
Ah, yes, yes, yes. So you can sell those fractionals. Tell me a little bit about that. That's interesting.
Yes, you can. So you are a deeded owner. You can pass it on to a child if you have a child. You can just like a piece of property, you can sell. Now, it is a sort of a unique market. In the case of our friends, they eventually sold first one and then their second one, and they actually made a profit. I mean, I wouldn't call it like a gangbusters real estate investment, but I would say effectively there was enough appreciation over those years that they owned that effectively they stayed in Paris for a month a year for years for free while paying for the relatively affordable ongoing maintenance cost.
Right, right. So, who owns these apartments? Is it like private equity? Is it a group of owners? Is it a corporation? How does this work out?
Well, so I think behind every fractional, there's a developer, and they've effectively set up a small organization to manage it. I mean, this could be a smaller developer like ours. I think they've done like four, possibly more under another name, but there are some larger ones. I mean, you've probably heard of Paris Perfect, who we have rented apartments from before, but they also find apartments to develop as fractionals and then sell the shares.
Right.
So usually kind of as part of this arrangement, they also do the management, meaning as owners, we don't have to be concerned that the property tax gets paid. We don't have to be concerned with getting someone to attend the meetings of the syndic, the owner structure of the apartment. So all of the sort of duties of ownership are taken care of for us. And most of them also include some kind of arrangement for housekeeping, which is wonderful.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
Right. Ours is the arrangement is that there is housekeeping once a week, not just between the 2 week stays. So that's wonderful.
Yes, yes, yes. And also, trust me, attending a syndic meeting is no joy for anybody. Let me just explain.
Probably not too much fun.
Yeah, yeah. So syndic is it's like a condo meeting where all the owners will get together and decide, make some decisions, vote on what gets done and what doesn't get done. It's either very boring or very confrontational.
Yeah, it could be contentious, right? Depending on the decision being made.
Yes, yes. It's sometimes very confrontational and it's always too long. And anyway, I haven't had to attend one of these in a long time. But well, I do attend them for my apartment in Spain, but it's just four of us, so it's easy.
Oh, okay.
When you have a large apartment and there's, a few I mean, sometimes it's whole strings of apartments that a particular syndic will manage, and so they invite everybody and it's dozens of people and it's a bit complicated. Anyway, that's not something you have to worry about. Whoever manages the apartment will take care of that. And they will also presumably take care of, do they take care of all the bills, the power, the water, all that?
Yes, all of that. All of that. So we actually own a small one bedroom co op in New York, which, is about, say, 22 owners of a 6 story building. And of course, then we have to arrange the housekeeping. We pay the utility bills, we pay the maintenance, which includes paying our property tax. But still, you are managing any little thing that goes wrong or that any way that the apartment needs attention. This is the most carefree piece of property we own.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see the advantages. And of course, you probably have not only the original purchase price of your share, but you also have dues that you have to pay, I assume.
That's correct. Yeah. But compared to, say, owning a co op in New York, it's rather nominal. It depends on the size of the apartment, of course, but, in our case, it's about 4,000 euros a year, something like that.
Okay, okay. I would love to have kind of an idea of the sort of price range of your part because, well, your part or in general, it doesn't have to be very specific to you. But what sort of range are we looking at?
Well, obviously, it varies with the size of the apartment, the location, and that kind of thing. But in a general way, the least expensive ones I've ever seen are about 100,000 a share. The most expensive ones I've seen have been 6 to 800,000 a share. Now, those would be for like 3 bedroom, 3 bath in a very chic neighborhood like Saint-Germain-des-Prés something like that. And usually then would also come with more time. So fewer owners, say 8 owners, with maybe 6.5 weeks a year, as opposed to 12 to 13 owners getting a month or 4 weeks a year. It's definitely proportional, but the most typical, like for example, we have a 1 bedroom. It's a very nicely appointed 1 bedroom in a very central location of the Marais in the fourth arrondissement. Our shares a year ago were 160,000 euros. So about at that time, 172 US dollars. Today, that would be 185,000. So it turns out our timing was good, but that was just pure luck.
Right, right, right.
It just happened to coincide with us kind of semi-retiring, and we were celebrating our 35th wedding anniversary, so kinda looked at it as our gift to ourselves, something we could actually finally realistically consider.
Yes, yes, wonderful. Okay, what if you show up and say the kettle is broken?
Okay.
Like, I'm just going into the details. Is there someone do you then go get a new kettle, or does someone
It depends on the particular apartment, but in ours, we have a concierge, and basically we just send him a WhatsApp message or call him and say, "Hey, the kettle is broken," and he shows up with a new one. So that's really very nice. In the case of the friend that who originally introduced us to this notion, they were more of a what I would call a self-managed fractional. And I think that they, depending on the developer, the particular arrangement might allow more or less involvement in decision making by the owners. In the particular case of my friends, I remember her, she's a very responsible person who sort of automatically becomes either the president or the treasurer or, whatever she's involved with.
Yeah.
And so I would hear kind of the inside stories of her dealings with some of the other owners. And I remember her saying something like, "Oh, we couldn't come to an agreement about what type of coffee maker to have. So we have four different ones."
Well, you have to have counter space for 4, you know?
Well, exactly. I mean, that's not ideal. In our case, I would say ours is more professionally managed and, it basically came equipped with all the kitchen stuff. I mean, during the first year as people had their first stays, they would, say, "Hey, we could really use a, you know, X." I think in my case, I said, "Hey, we need something to steep tea with," that kind of thing. So there was a little refinement, kind of ongoing in the first year, but it was pretty well equipped, like right from the beginning, with only one type of coffee maker. So,
You can get other coffee going out into the street and buy whatever you want. Yes,
well, there's a limited amount of space in the storage space, so you do have to make some decisions.
exactly. Do you have any sort of private storage area that like a locker or a thing that you can keep a few items right there?
We do. Most of these apartments, I think, come with some cov space. And of course, since there's
Cave meaning it's a basement storage sort of situation. Yep.
and in our case, since there are 13 owners, what we get effectively is like a large plastic box, enough to, like, I store some slippers, an extra, a comfortable pair of walking shoes. My husband leaves a raincoat, enough to store some personal items, not a lot.
Right. One thing that happens with my small apartment, which I own, but I lend it out to family members, everybody wants to leave a gift or something. Everybody wants to buy an item that they would like me to enjoy and they will enjoy next time. And that has become a problem because I don't necessarily agree with their choice. And also, if everybody does this, then it's going to be a junk house, and I really don't want that. So does that happen as well? Like people just purchase something and they leave it out thinking, oh, maybe the next occupant will enjoy it?
So far, this is our third stay, and so far I've seen a few book editions. Actually, I just finished reading Ruth Reichel's The Paris novel. Jet lag had me up at 4 a.m., so
Yeah. Nice.
which I really enjoyed. So I've seen a few book editions. That was one I just found in the apartment, and someone else left like an exercise mat, which I've been making use of. But so far, it seems people have been pretty good about that. I know exactly what you're talking about because we have a house in Arizona that we did quite a few exchanges with, and people would, oh, like the next time we'd come, there'd be new espresso cups. And then the next time there'd be this and that, which, yeah, you have to try to keep a handle on.
Yes, yes, yes. So, how do you communicate with your fellow owners? Do you know them personally? Do you have a WhatsApp group?
We have a WhatsApp group.
Okay.
Yeah, WhatsApp is kind of the favored way to communicate. So this is, literally just existed since last summer, so a year and a half, let's say. As people came on, they kind of introduced themselves by email, and it's an interesting group. I have not met any of them in person, but we do have a once a year owners meeting. In fact, we were here in the apartment a year ago during the meeting and kind of took people on a video tour, so to speak, of the apartment because at that point, not every owner had been here. But yeah, so you do kind of get to know people. We also have a notebook in our apartment where people share, this great exhibition. If it's still going on while you're here, don't miss it. Or new restaurant discoveries in the neighborhood, that kind of thing.
Oh, that's nice that it's in a notebook and then you're not constantly pinging the group because WhatsApp group can get very chatty,
Yes.
which sometimes is wonderful, but sometimes it's a bit much.
Yeah, ours is, I think, pretty restrained overall. There are little bursts of conversation, but they're mostly things that either need to be addressed or are useful information.
Right. And I assume that most of the people you're dealing with are all professionals. And I mean, if they have this sort of money, they clearly have been successful in life. And so they're probably just fairly used to, good behavior.
It seems I feel like based on our interactions with our other owners that we have an exceptionally good group. Of course, I am, kind of mentally comparing them with what I heard from my friend who I think, was privy to some of the less fun interactions. But as I say, I think maybe that group was organized a little differently and maybe a little more self-managed kind of gives people a little more license to try to exert their preferences. So I think ours has set up with some nice boundaries, let's just say.
Right. It might be preferable, as a matter of fact, to have a very strong initial developer who's going to set rules.
That's been my impression.
Yeah.
And in fact, when you start reading the fine print in the contract and all that kind of stuff, there's very specific procedures. Let's say if there are conflicts, if an owner doesn't pay their yearly dues, what happens in these scenarios? And it seems like they have pretty much thought of most things. I had a friend who is a lawyer read through the contract for us, and he's like, This is pretty thorough."
Right. They ironed out they anticipated a lot of the possible difficulties, which is always good.
Yes, I think so.
Do you have any little extras, like, I don't know, bicycles that you can use in your cave or things like, or in your storage area? I assume perhaps the apartment has a bit of a shared storage.
I've actually never been down in the storage. I've heard from our concierge that, who's carrying a large plastic box up and down for each owner because it's waiting for you in the apartment when you arrive, that the stairs are a little perhaps tricky.
Yeah, okay, okay.
I haven't ventured down there. And so, no, we don't.
It's not super accessible. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have any bicycles or anything like that. That said, we're in one of the things we like about this location, we're near the St. Paul metro station, is we can walk to practically everything.
Right. If you're near St. Paul, yeah,
Very central.
yeah.
Yeah, we love being on line one. I mean, so it's actually rare that we take the subway, but when we do, line one whisks you, here and there, and it's easy to make connections. And
Definitely. Have you met the original developer or never?
yes. Well, we've met one of the 2. The other we've met virtually on Zoom, at the owners' meeting. But coincidentally, one thing I've noticed is the different developers have different styles. I'm not talking about personalities, I'm talking about decorating styles. And that was one of the things that appealed to us about this particular apartment. And coincidentally, about 10 years or so ago, we were seriously considering acquiring a fractional share in a two-bedroom, only a couple of blocks from here on Rue Mahler, and it turns out it was decorated by the same woman, the same developer. Over the years, even though I was the one that was more enthusiastic about the idea of sharing a fractional than my husband would be the one who'd say, I wonder if there's a resale share that's come up in Rue Mahler. So he obviously was really taken with that particular apartment and its look.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, that makes a big difference. Is the developer French or is everybody involved from the US?
I think well, one of them is, I believe, Lebanese, but I think has lived in Paris for a while, but also has a presence in the US. The other is a woman who is originally from Texas, but is married to a Frenchman and has lived in Paris for decades.
All right. So they are kind of semi local in many ways. And obviously, your concierge is local and manages all of the apartments. So,
Yeah, he is American, but he's lived here for 25 years.
okay. You have an American concierge as well? Wow.
We do.
That's interesting. All right. So, generally speaking, what would you say are things people need to be on the lookout for if they are considering a fractional? I should mention, because I didn't, that you don't sell fractionals. You don't, I mean, you're not involved in anything commercial having to do with fractionals. You're just a buyer who wanted to share your experiences. It's always good to make that clear. Yeah.
Well, that's correct. I had the experience of my friends' one bedroom and two bedrooms in which I stayed multiple times. So that's how I got to know this neighborhood because one of those fractionals was literally a block one way and the other one was a block the other way. We also did a number of exchanges over the years, and we've rented apartments in Paris. So we've stayed in a number of hotels as well. So we've kind of sampled a number of different ways to stay for an extended period in Paris. Having your own place in a neighborhood that you like is gold.
Absolutely. So I assume most of these fractionals are going to be in the Marais and Saint-Germain-des-Prés.
The ones that we have seen, that said, I've noticed, for example, Paris Perfect, from whom we have rented apartments, they seem to have a predilection that most, at least a number of their fractionals are in the seventh, which is a nice neighborhood, but to me is a little bit, it's a little bit of a walk to a lot of other things that I want to do.
That's the Eiffel Tower area.
Right, exactly. I mean, one of their signatures is a number of their apartments have views of the Eiffel Tower, which is wonderful, but, you know,
This is worth noting for people who don't know Paris as well as you and I do. The Eiffel Tower, while it's not far, it is on the edge of the city. And so if you're staying at the Eiffel Tower and you want to go to the Louvre, well, it's a bit of a hoof metro ride or taxi ride or whatever.
yeah, I mean, yes, you can do it, but you do need to be pretty mobile. We love to walk, but I like being very, very central.
And Marais is perfect for that.
We go to the movies a lot. Paris is a paradise for a cinema lover because there's still all these tiny little theaters all over. So we walk to the left bank almost every day. But in some ways, because we like to get a little exercise too, it's funny that I love the right bank. I love the Marais. I love the old buildings, the parks. But I'm kind of glad the movie theater's over there because it kind of gets us out of the neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah. How do you keep yourselves busy since you go so often? What are some of your favorite things to do in Paris?
Well, I was thinking about how to anticipating this question, and it comes down to the three M's. So in a typical day, we will usually have a good meal out. So that's one of the M's. We often will see a movie, and we often will go to a museum. And despite the fact that I've been here so many times, there are still museums I have never made it to, as well as, some of the ones that we like. Of course, the exhibits are always changing. So
That's right. And that's the amazing thing about Paris is that there are so many major museums that have major exhibits coming through. And you will always have something to go do. It's never ending.
it's incredible to me that, I mean, over the years, I have been to many of the different museums, but I haven't by any means seen all of them. And then even some of the relatively famous ones like, say, the Rodin Museum. I think I've only been there once or twice. Usually it's like some special exhibit that will bring me to, some of the less often visited museums. But, in our neighborhood, there are some gems.
Oh, yeah, the Marais is full, yes.
Well, one of our favorites that I think is less well known is called the Musée de la Chasse et de la Nature, the Museum of Hunting and Nature, which is a title that completely put us off for years.
Yes.
We're like, "We're not into hunting." It turns out it's basically a museum dedicated to the depiction of animals. And of course, hunting is part of that, but it's in an absolutely beautiful Hotel Particulier, gorgeous, gorgeous mansion with a fabulous furniture collection. I mean, even the stair railings, I love. And they have this such an interesting mix of traditional and contemporary art. I mean, so they have a beautiful holdings of traditional depictions of hunting and animal portraiture, but then they'll juxtapose it with some very whimsical and interesting contemporary pieces. A friend of ours who is an artist in Paris, Mélanie Guermont, years ago, she had a couple of pieces included in an exhibit there, and that's the first time we went. And since then, we don't go necessarily every visit, but once a year or so, you'll find us there.
Yes, and it's a private museum, but it's really interesting.
It's so quirky. I love it.
The reason why is chasse is because a lot of the famous paintings that depict animals depict hunting scenes.
Hmm.
So,
I mean, from the birds to the dogs to, the actual quarry, the title shouldn't put you off. It's a little gem.
yes, yes, yes. What other little gems do you enjoy in Paris?
Oh, well, we're into photography. We're photographers ourselves, and we also collect photographies. Right down the street from us is MEP, the Maison. Let's see, how's it titled? It's basically the Museum of European Photography, the Maison Européenne de la Photographie, I think is the title. That often has shows of interest. For example, in a couple of days, there's an Edward Weston exhibition that is opening. So we're going to make a point of going there during this trip.
People who spend a lot of time in Paris go to so many exhibits. It's really fascinating to me that they seem to, and I'm basing this a lot on my friends Patricia and Jennifer. They seem to go mostly to these museums to see the exhibit, and they might go see the permanent collection as well. But I get the impression that they just go to see the special exhibit and perhaps walk quickly through the permanent collection because most museums in Paris have both.
Yes, they do. And it's been, in fact, I was kind of shocked on my last trip in July. We went to the Petit Palais to see a particular exhibit, but I never realized that they had such an amazing permanent collection.
It's wonderful.
It's fabulous. And I had somehow completely managed to miss that.
Yeah. The Petit Palais is always high on my list of recommendations, especially, well, and perhaps that's not fair, but I think people who are visiting Paris who are not used to going to a lot of museums, who are not used to doing, all the art stuff, if they go to the Petit Palais, not only is it free to enter to see the permanent collection, but the gardens around it and the garden inside of it are absolutely,
And the building
the building is stunning.
is stunning.
There's a nice little cafe there. If you are visiting with children who have a limited attention span, it's perfect because it's not very big.
Hmm.
I think the Petit Palais is just wonderful. The Grand Palais is also wonderful. That's more of a, an outing that you plan on. You have to pay for your tickets. It requires more time.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't know. Like when we're in New York, we belong to the Met, and I would never attempt to, the Met is too big, just like the Louvre is too big. Even the Musée d'Orsay is too big to try to do the whole thing in one day. The ideal thing, I think, is to be a member and just go for an hour or so because the visual overload is, is a real thing, the fatigue factor.
And if you are a yearly member, then you can usually enter an hour before everybody else,
Mhm.
and you don't queue up very long. I mean, the security line is very short. You're in.
Right. There are definite advantages.
Yes. I don't think in Paris the price of membership is all that high, really. It's a couple €100 perhaps for the year for the bigger museums.
Yeah, I think it's actually very reasonably priced, especially compared to, if you just add up the daily entrance price for a couple of adults, it compares very favorably, I think.
Yes, yes, yes. Are you a cook? Do you like to cook? Are there things that you can recommend? Do you like to go out to eat? You say you go out every once a day, perhaps?
Roughly, but like for example, this time I don't think we've been out to eat just yet. We arrived on Saturday and we went to the Richard Lenoir market on Sunday and we bought so much stuff that we had to postpone a dinner reservation we had from last night to tonight. We're trying to eat our way through, a very enthusiastic market outing. My husband's quite a good cook, and I can cook. I don't enjoy it quite as much, and I prefer the way I clean up the kitchen to the way he cleans up the kitchen, so that's usually our arrangement.
Perfect match?
But on the other hand, I do enjoy visiting bakeries, so it's pretty usual that, if I see a new bakery that I just have to duck in and see what unique thing they might be offering. So I kinda collect stuff while I'm out.
I think Americans have a tendency to like to make lists of the best of this and the best of that. And I think that's not ideal in Paris because things are always changing when it comes to restaurants and bakeries and cafes and things like that.
Oh, so true.
Just try them. Just try some and you'll have your favorite. But you know what? Next time you go, perhaps it will have changed hands.
Yes, that's so true. I was actually just reading an old blog of mine from a prior Paris trip, and it suddenly reminded me of a restaurant I had really enjoyed some years back before the pandemic. So I looked it up. It's still very highly rated. So I just made a reservation for next week. And I'm like, how did I forget about this place? I'm speaking of Le Rimini in the fifth.
Okay.
Easy walk for me, but I remember having a couple of wonderful meals on several different occasions, and seems like it's still well regarded, and so
So you typically like to reserve for your dinners?
it depends. Like, if a place is very expensive, sometimes like to try it first for lunch since it's generally less expensive that way. In addition, this particular trip, I've been struggling with jet lag a lot more than normal. Most of the time, we spend a few days in New York before we come. This particular trip, we were actually in Papua New Guinea a week before we came here. And so
Oh, wow.
my internal clock is I actually feel fine. It's just that, it isn't really normal to get up and read between 1 and 3 AM, and, it's gradually moved to, 4:30 to 6:30. So, I'm making progress, but, it's a good problem to have.
Yes, yes, yes. And it is true as you age as well, you're going to deal with more difficult jet lag every time. It just doesn't get any easier.
One of the best things for us has been the ability to stop off in New York before and after trips to kind of work our way back to the West Coast where our primary residence is. So, just kind of ease the blow a little.
Yes, I like to spend the night near the airport. Living in Toulouse as I do, to get on an international flight to just about anywhere, it's going to leave early in the morning. And if your flight departs at 8 in the morning, that means that you have to be at the Toulouse airport as soon as it opens at 4 in the morning. And it's just brutal. Like, it's just difficult.
Yeah, it just cuts down on the stress.
Exactly. So we just spend the night at the airport and get on our 8, 9, 10 flight out. Much easier than if we were doing it straight from Toulouse. But that's just something that we never did before. We just now we're like, okay, this has to happen. Otherwise, travel is no fun. You feel tired all the time.
You make accommodations. Yeah, exactly.
What are some gotchas, perhaps, about Paris? Like things that when you come back, you're, oh, I had forgotten about this. I don't know. Do you have anything in mind like that? Things that work differently. Like, I find that one of the things that surprises people is French doors. They don't seem to lock the same way as American doors.
I think I'm used to them. We have a tiny balcony here, and I absolutely love the ability to step outside and feel the temperature because sometimes, just looking at the number in your phone of what the temperature is and is going to be isn't quite, it can feel a little different depending on whether it's cloudy or windy or it's like, okay, which thickness of coat do I need for today?
Right, right, right. No, and really, the Marais is a lovely location. I mean, honestly,
We love it.
you're so close to everything. If you're close to the Saint Paul metro station, the river's not very far. There's shopping, both of very fancy shopping, but also everyday shopping nearby.
Yes, the street that basically where the San Paul metro station is, there's a wonderful cheese shop next to a wonderful wine shop, next to a wonderful produce source.
There's a rotisserie. There's a very good rotisserie chicken as well there.
I've been there many times. It's pretty rare that we come here and don't go there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's the beauty of that particular part is that I mean it can be a bit of a party place at times, but that's very street specific.
Very true. Very true. In fact, our mutual friend Patricia was super helpful in us because it is a bit of a leap of faith to buy even a share of an apartment without seeing it yourself. So, in addition to virtually walking the streets, through using my husband's Oculus virtual reality headset.
The goggles, yeah, yeah.
Yes, the goggles. So we walked the streets. We asked our friend Patricia to come and videotape not only the street, but the stairs, the elevator, open the drawers, show me the silverware. Because, well, once we rented an apartment near the Pantheon through Paris Perfect, and the apartment was perfectly lovely, but the building dated to like the 16th century, and the spiral stairs were so canted that literally, like, my husband and I were sort of like clutching the banister going up or down because they were every one was like a different angle, different height. I was like, this is a disaster in the making. We like to take the stairs. I mean, we have an elevator, but it is just big enough for one person and luggage. So, unless we have luggage, we take the stairs.
Right, right, right.
So I want them to be reasonably safe.
Yes, yes. That's a lot of details that you could work out. But I think once you have a fractional like you do, then you work it out once and you can come back many times. And that's the beauty of it. Then it feels like home, even though it's only partially home.
Right, it is a home you share with others, but, I mean, this particular one is lovely, it's beautifully furnished, they thought out pretty much every detail we could possibly want, and, while it'd be wonderful to have your own apartment and do it exactly as you like, it's a lot of work, I mean,
It is. And you would feel bad that it's empty a lot of the time.
there's pretty good statistics out there that show that most second homeowners, if they use them, 4 to 6 to 8 weeks is about the max for most second homeowners.
Yes, yes. And this is something that I experienced myself. Now, my apartment in Spain, I didn't buy it. My parents bought it. They wanted a secondary place, and they did. When they retired, they would spend 6 months out of the year there. So it made perfect sense for their use case. But I can't spend that much time there, even though I would enjoy it. It's just not possible. I have to work. And so I think that's nowadays we have a lot more possibilities like fractionals, like places like home exchange. The one you mentioned was it's not called home exchange, it's called what was it again?
Third home.
Third home.
Mhm.
Right. So places like that are kind of popular as well because then you have a place, but you don't feel like you have to be there all the time. It's getting used, which is better. And I think for locals as well, from a local perspective, I think it is better to have an apartment in your building that gets used by different people every couple of weeks than that is empty 90% of the time, honestly.
There's also the issue of, and we've discovered this, firsthand in our apartment in New York, is that things happen, leaks,
Yeah.
problems can develop in an unoccupied apartment that If somebody's there, it's much more likely to be detected and attended to, hopefully, in a timely fashion.
Right. I once showed up at my apartment in Spain and the power had tripped and nobody was there to set it up again. And somebody had left just one piece of fish in the back of the freezer. It was my cousin. And she had told me, I've emptied the fridge. The thing is, she forgot about the one piece of fish that she wanted to take home and cook that night at her house in France. And so when I showed up 6 months later,
Oh, no.
it smelled like death in there. It was so bad that I mean, the fridge was old. I had to change it anyway, but I couldn't get the smell out. It was just impossible.
Ugh,
So these things happen in an apartment that you don't use enough. Even if you take precautions and you're careful, it can happen. Like,
no, it's true.
yeah. So it's better. I mean, Paris being the way it is, it's getting expensive to have a place in Paris. Not as expensive as New York or San Francisco, but still quite expensive. There are a lot of rich people who want to have a pied-à-terre in France, and they will buy these apartments that they don't really use very much because they figure if I don't use it, it's a good investment anyway, which is true. But then you have this empty apartment, which makes it harder for locals to find places to stay. So at least if you have a fractional, it's going to get used. You've paid market price for it. I think it's a better solution.
I do too. We ran into a similar situation with our house in Arizona where during the pandemic, because so much of our international travel was postponed, one year we were basically doing makeup trips and we arrived there with had been 6 months since our prior visit. And during that time, let's see, one of the heating and air conditioning units had failed. We had a leak. And we're like, wow, okay. At that point, we decided to rent it out a little bit just to have it occupied a bit more than we were able to occupy it at the time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
things do happen.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we have been chatting a long time. Thank you so much. You've been really generous with your time and with your knowledge because that's really precious to have someone who's done it for years like you have. So thank you so much.
Been an interesting journey. Yes. Over the years, we have looked at a number of options and somehow, just the right set, the timing, the right size, the right location, everything has to kind of converge. But it finally came together for us.
It seems like it's not a market where things evolve very quickly. So it's not like there's a lot of these fractionals out there. You have to be patient, I guess, right?
Right, and it's kind of funny how this one found me. It was the same friend whose fractionals I used to stay in who actually sent me the notice. She's like, "Oh, this looks nice. You might check it out." I was like, "Oh."
So probably to find one, you have to kind of get on, like there might be email lists or people who are on the lookout for these sorts of opportunities.
Yeah, if one was interested to just get started, you can just Google Paris fractional apartments, and most of the major developers who offer fractional apartments will come up. Some of the, what's happening in Paris kind of newsletters and things like that will sometimes highlight a particular property. And that's more or less what happened. I think it was like something like Hip in Paris or something like that. One of those kind of newsletter kind of email things that alerted my friend who alerted me, one thing led to another.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Marie, and have a wonderful time in Paris.
Thank you. Thank you. It was great talking to you.
Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.
À bientôt. Au revoir.
Again, I want to thank my patrons for giving back and supporting the show. Patrons get several exclusive rewards for doing that. You can see them at patreon.com/join us. That's Patreon. Join us, no spaces or dashes. A special shout out this week to my new Join Us in France champion, Carolyn Bentley. And to support Elise, go to patreon.com/Elise Art. Would you join them too? You can do it for as little as $3 a month. But if you can afford it, I would love to have you pledge more so you can have access to more of the rewards. This week, I published the dates and links for our March Zoom meetings with patrons. March 8th. Mark the date, patrons, and check your Patreon app. If you're planning to be in Toulouse this spring or summer, I have a little invitation for you. I offer private day trips in the southwest of France in my electric SUV, and my calendar is filling up pretty fast. These are not cookie cutter tours that you grab off the big platforms. This is completely custom. Before we ever hit the road, we meet on Zoom. You tell me what you're interested in: Cathar history, hilltop villages, food markets, wine, scenic drives, photography spots, easy walks, you name it. Not sure what's best? That's fine too. I'll suggest ideas based on your interest and your time of year. I can take up to 4 people, and the price is €600 for the full day for your group. It's a relaxed, flexible, and in depth experience, and honestly, it's a lot of fun for me spending the day with podcast listeners. To get started, go to joinusinfrance.com/day trip with a dash and book a time for us to chat. You'll also see examples of the tours I offer, and I've recently added even more ideas for inspiration. If the southwest of France is on your itinerary, let's make it unforgettable. I'd love to show you around. Let's talk about the Charles de Gaulle Airport to Paris or Paris to Charles de Gaulle Airport. There are some things that change in March 2026 coming up very soon. If you're flying in or out of Paris, starting on March 1st, 2026, the Roissy bus disappears for good. After more than 30 years, transport authorities have decided it's just too unreliable because of traffic. Not because it wasn't popular, mind you, because it was, but the traffic makes it very unreliable. From now on, they want travelers to rely mainly on rail or take a taxi. The main public transport option will be the RER-B, which already serves all terminals at Paris-Charles de Gaulle Airport. Trains run every 6 to 15 minutes from early mornings until around midnight. To or from central Paris, it's usually the fastest options when everything runs normally. And it doesn't always run normally, but usually it does. The fare is €14 one way, unless you have a Navigo pass that already covers all zones, and they don't all do that. So, check. The downside, of course, is that the RER-B can be crowded, sometimes disrupted, not ideal if you're traveling with luggage or arriving very late at night. That's where the taxis still make sense. A licensed Paris taxi offers a flat fare, currently around €56 from the right bank and 65 to or from the left bank. There's no surprises, even in traffic, same price. And the taxis can take the bus lanes as well, so they're always faster than Uber. It's door-to-door, works 24/7, and it can be much less stressful after a long flight, especially for families or groups. So the takeaway is pretty simple. RER-B if you want speed and lower cost, taxi if you want comfort, predictability, or if you're traveling at odd hours. So Roissy bus is gone. Rail is now the default, but taxi remains a very good backup. I take taxis. I have to admit, I take taxis. If I have luggage, I'm not schlepping the luggage on the RER-B. But that's just me. Now, an important safety note about the RER-B: petty theft is a known and persistent issue with this line, especially on trains serving Paris-Charles de Gaulle Airport. A common tactic is quick grab just as the train stops. Someone snatches your phone, your bag, or a backpack and jumps out just as the doors close and the train pulls away. It happens fast. It's usually done by young men and very quick thieves, and it's been going on for years, dozens of times each day. So if you take the RER-B, keep your belongings zipped, held in front of you, and never resting near the doors. Stay alert until the train is fully moving again. And I should say, I know it's tempted to check your phone because you've just landed and you want to catch up. Not on the RER-B, okay? That phone is staying put wherever you're hiding it. Did you know the Eiffel Tower honors scientists by name? And did you know all of them were men until now? Here's a bit of Paris news that I really like. The city has just revealed the names of 72 women scientists whose names are expected to be added to the Eiffel Tower in the near future. Until now, the tower honored 72 male scientists and engineers whose names are engraved on the first level. Now, admittedly, you need to have good eyesight or perhaps bring binoculars, which is always a good idea. But they are there. And this new edition is meant to finally correct a clear injustice. The goal is to push back against what is known as the Matilda effect, the long-standing tendency to minimize or erase women's contributions to scientific research. A commission held by astrophysicist Isabelle Vauglin worked with the Eiffel Tower's operator to select women whose work was fundamental but often overlooked. These women came from many fields: astronomy, chemistry, mathematics, geology, medicine, and engineering. Some were pioneers in their discipline, others made discoveries that are still used today, and many had to fight simply to be allowed to study or work. A few examples really stood out to me. Edmée Chandon was born in Paris in 1885. She was France's first professional woman astronomer. During World War I, she calculated artillery trajectories for the military. She later became the first French woman to earn a state doctorate in mathematics and spent her entire career at the Paris Observatory. Henriette Delamarre, a 19th century geologist and paleontologist, specialized in fossil-rich sedimentary rocks called phalone. Alongside her scientific work, she was deeply engaged in humanitarian causes and was active in early feminist movements, including the fight for women's voting rights. And of course, there's Irène Joliot-Curie, who is on the list as well. She won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1935 with her husband for their work on artificial radioactivity. She was also one of the first women to serve in the French government and was a very strong advocate for gender equality and anti-fascism. And then there's Sophie Germain, a self-taught mathematician born in 1776. She initially used a male pseudonym just to be taken seriously. Her work influenced research on the strengths of material, including studies connected to the construction of the Eiffel Tower itself. Ironically, she's often called the forgotten woman of the Eiffel Tower, which makes this recognition especially meaningful. Altogether, the 72 names represent centuries of scientific excellence that helped shape modern France, even when recognition didn't follow at the time. The final list needs formal approval from France's scientific academies, but once validated, these names will literally be written into Paris history on one of the most visited monuments in the world. I love this idea. It doesn't erase the past, it just completes it. And next time you visit the Eiffel Tower, you may be standing under the names that were long overdue to be there. My thanks to podcast editors Anne and Christian Codovan, who produced the transcripts. Next week on the podcast, an episode with Janine Lurie about the Gers department and why it's such a wonderful, peaceful place to visit and the tours that she offers there. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you join me next time so we can look around France together. Au revoir. The Join Us in France Travel Podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2026 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.